My own mother testified in court that I should pay child support for a baby that isn't mine. She said DNA doesn't matter. Now my father is divorcing her, and our entire family is falling apart. Hello, Reddit I plus here. I never thought I'd sit in a courtroom and hear my own mother argue harder for my ex than she ever argued for me. But there she was, hand on a Bible, staring straight at the judge like she was delivering a sermon. DNA is not the only thing that makes someone a father. That sentence detonated my entire family. I'm 31 now. This started last year when I was 29, and I still replay that courtroom scene in my head almost every night. The kid at the center of all this is named Noah. He's innocent in all of it, which honestly makes the whole thing worse. His mother, my ex, was named Kendra. We dated for 4 years, lived together for 2. The relationship ended badly, but not dramatically. No cheating that I knew of, no screaming matches. We just burned out. I moved from Oklahoma to Arizona for work after the breakup. Fresh start, new city, new apartment, new job fixing commercial HVAC systems. For almost a year, I barely heard from her. Then one random Saturday morning, my cousin tagged me in a photo on Facebook by accident. That single mistake ruined everything. The photo showed Kendra in a hospital bed, holding a newborn wrapped in blue blankets. Caption: "Can't wait for our little family to finally be together." My cousin commented, "He looks just like his daddy," then tagged me. I remember staring at the screen for a full minute trying to process what I was looking at. The baby looked freshly born. I counted backward immediately. Then I counted again. Then I opened my calculator app because my brain refused to accept basic math. The timing made 0 sense. Kendra and I had broken up 15 months earlier. 15, not 5, not maybe there's overlap. 15 whole months. I called my mom first. Worst decision of my life. She answered on the second ring, sounding nervous immediately. "Honey." That tone told me everything before she even spoke. "You knew." Silence. Then she sighed. "We were waiting for the right time to tell you." We. That word hit me harder than anything else. Apparently my mother had known about the baby almost the entire pregnancy. Not only known, involved, deeply involved. She'd gone shopping with Kendra for baby clothes. She helped decorate the nursery. She hosted the baby shower. She was posting pictures holding him on her private Facebook page, calling herself Grandma D. All while I was 2 states away, working 60-hour weeks, thinking my biggest issue was rent going up. I asked the obvious question. "Mom, why would you think the baby is mine?" And I swear to God, this woman actually said, "Because sometimes men leave and women need support." I nearly drove off the road. "I left 15 months before the baby. You don't know everything that happened? What does that even mean?" She got defensive instantly. "Kendra was scared. She didn't want you to disappear." Disappear from what? A child that literally cannot biologically be mine? That's when she dropped the line that became her entire personality for the next year. Being a father is more than biology. I hung up on her. 3 days later, I drove back to Oklahoma because I couldn't believe any of this was real. When I got to my parents' house, my mother opened the door holding the baby like some Hallmark movie grandmother. She actually smiled at me. "There's our daddy." I felt sick. My father was sitting in his recliner watching baseball with the volume low. He barely looked away from the TV, but he said something I'll never forget. "Get a DNA test before you say another word." That was my dad. Quiet, practical, never emotional. If he spoke, it mattered. So I got the test. I paid for everything myself because Kendra suddenly became too busy every time paperwork came up. The only reason I even got the baby tested was because my mother convinced Kendra to cooperate. Looking back, I think Mom believed the test would somehow prove I was the father, like reality itself would bend to protect her fantasy. 2 weeks later, the results came in 0.00% probability. Not unlikely, not inconclusive. Scientifically impossible. I emailed the results to everyone involved. Kendra never replied. My mother called me within 20 minutes, and somehow she sounded angry at me. "So that's it? You're just abandoning him?" I honestly laughed because I thought she had to be joking. "Mom, he is literally not my child." "That paper doesn't change the bond you created." "What bond? I've never even met him." "You were supposed to." I still remember that sentence because it was so insane. Supposed to. Like she'd written a script for my life and got mad reality refused to follow it. Things got uglier fast. A month later, I got served papers at work. Kendra filed for child support. She put my name on the birth certificate without my knowledge. Apparently in Oklahoma, if nobody contests it immediately, things can get messy. My lawyer, Eric Nolan, looked over the paperwork and actually chuckled. "This is ridiculous. We'll have this thrown out immediately." He was confident right up until he saw the witness list. Kendra had added a character witness, my mother. I remember physically feeling cold when I read it. I called her 6 times, no answer. Finally, I drove to my parents' place again. My dad was outside in the garage pretending to organize tools even though nothing was actually moving. "She's at Kendra's house," he said quietly. She's testifying against me. He nodded once, didn't defend her, didn't argue, just nodded like a man watching his house burn down from inside it. Then he said something that honestly broke my heart. I don't know who your mother is anymore. Court day came. Kendra showed up acting like we were in some tragic co-parenting drama instead of a fraud case. My mother sat beside her, not beside me, beside her. The judge started reviewing evidence. My lawyer submitted the DNA results immediately. Open and shut. Should have been over right there. Then Kendra's attorney argued that I had emotionally accepted responsibility because my family had embraced the child publicly, which was already insane. But then my mother took the stand. I can still see my father sitting beside me during this part, completely still. Hands clenched so tight his knuckles looked white. My mother testified that I had abandoned my responsibilities, that I knew about the child, that I allowed emotional bonds to form. She started crying at one point, actual tears, talking about how Noah deserves stability. Then came the sentence that destroyed my parents' marriage. DNA doesn't matter. Family is chosen through love. I looked at my dad after she said it. His face didn't even look angry. That's the scary part. He looked done, like something inside him quietly shut off forever. The judge ended up postponing the ruling because of inconsistencies in Kendra's paperwork and timeline. Outside the courthouse, my mother tried to approach me. My father stopped her. First time I've ever seen him raise his voice in my entire life. You lied for her. The whole parking lot went silent. You lied about our son. Mom started crying immediately, saying she was protecting a child. Dad just stared at her. Then he said the coldest sentence I've ever heard come out of a human mouth. You picked somebody else's lie over your own family. 3 weeks later, he filed for divorce after 36 years of marriage. Turns out this situation had exposed a lot more than just lies about a baby. My dad later admitted my mother had been sending Kendra money behind his back for months, thousands of dollars, using their retirement account. She genuinely believed she could pressure me into becoming the father if she just pushed hard enough. The final court ruling came 2 months later. Paternity disestablished, no child support, name removed from the birth certificate, case dismissed. The actual biological father finally surfaced too. Want to know the craziest part? He'd known the entire time. He just didn't want responsibility. So my mother tried to volunteer me instead. I haven't spoken to her in almost 2 years now. My father and I talk every week. He moved into a small cabin outside Tulsa, and honestly, it seems more peaceful than I've ever seen him. Last Thanksgiving, he looked at me across the dinner table and said, I should have stopped this sooner. I told him none of this was his fault, but sometimes I still think about that courtroom, about how easy it was for my own mother to sacrifice me for a fantasy she wanted to believe. And honestly, that hurt more than anything Kendra ever did. I thought the nightmare ended when the judge dismissed the case. I was wrong. That was just the part everybody could see. The real damage started afterward. About a month after the ruling, I got a call from my younger sister, Paige. We hadn't spoken much during the court mess because she stayed neutral publicly, which at the time I appreciated. Now I realized she wasn't neutral. She was hiding things. She called me crying so hard I could barely understand her. You need to talk to Dad. Apparently my father had collapsed in his garage while packing boxes for the divorce. Stress-induced chest pain. Not a heart attack, thankfully, but enough to land him in the hospital overnight. I drove straight to Tulsa. When I walked into that hospital room, my father looked 20 years older. This man spent decades climbing utility poles during ice storms and never complained once. Now he looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. He asked me to close the door. Then he handed me his phone. Read the messages. It was my mother. Hundreds of texts. At first it was guilt trips. You're destroying this family. You turned Tyler against me. Noah needs us. But then the messages got darker, a lot darker. One text read, if Tyler would have just stepped up like a real man, none of this would have happened. Another, you always favored him over your own wife. Then came the one that made my stomach turn. I already lost one grandson. I won't lose another? I stared at the screen. Another grandson? I looked at my dad. He took a long breath and rubbed his face. Then he told me something I never knew. Years ago, before I was born, my mother had a miscarriage late into pregnancy, a boy. She never dealt with it, never got therapy, never talked about it. According to my dad, the moment Noah was born, something in her snapped emotionally. She convinced herself that child belonged in our family no matter what reality said. And everyone else was expected to participate in the delusion. Suddenly, the obsession made horrible sense, but understanding it didn't make it hurt less. Then my father dropped another bomb. She knew the real father. I felt my chest tighten. What? Turns out my mother had known almost the entire time that Noah wasn't mine. Kendra confessed it to her privately during the pregnancy. The real father was some bartender named Seth she'd been seeing casually after our breakup. According to Kendra, Seth panicked and disappeared when she got pregnant. So my mother came up with a plan, not legally, emotionally. She convinced Kendra that if they got my name onto the birth certificate early enough, I'd eventually do the right thing. My own mother tried to socially engineer me into raising another man's child. I actually laughed when Dad told me because my brain couldn't process that level of insanity. You're joking. He shook his head slowly. She thought once you held the baby, you'd change. That sentence haunted me for weeks because she really believed it. She didn't think she was doing something evil. She thought she was saving a child. Meanwhile, she nearly destroyed her own son's life. Then things somehow got worse. 2 days after Dad got discharged from the hospital, someone vandalized his truck. Spray painted across the doors in giant white letters, "Deadbeat Family." The neighbors saw a woman leave in a silver SUV around midnight. Guess who drove a silver SUV? Kendra denied involvement immediately. My mother denied involvement too. But Dad filed a police report anyway. That same week, my employer called me into HR. Kendra had contacted my company. She claimed I was avoiding child support responsibilities and accused me of harassment. Thankfully, I'd kept every court document, every DNA result, every email. HR sided with me fast. But the humiliation stuck. People at work looked at me differently afterward, like maybe there was still a chance I was secretly guilty. That's the thing about accusations. Even after they're disproven, they leave fingerprints behind. Then my sister finally admitted her part in everything. We were sitting outside Dad's cabin one night when she broke down crying. She confessed that Mom had pressured her into helping during the pregnancy. Paige drove Kendra to appointments, helped organize the baby shower, posted fake family photos online to make it look like I was involved. I asked her why. Her answer honestly crushed me. Mom said you'd come back if there was a baby. Apparently, my mother became convinced after the breakup that I'd abandoned the family by moving away. So when Kendra got pregnant, Mom saw an opportunity, not just for a grandchild, for control, for keeping me close. Everything clicked into place after that. The manipulation, the lies, the desperation. None of this was ever about truth. It was about forcing reality into the shape she wanted. Then came Thanksgiving. First holiday after the divorce finalized. Dad invited me and Paige to the cabin. Quiet dinner. Just us three. Halfway through the meal, there was a knock at the door. Dad looked confused because nobody visits him out there. He opened it. My mother was standing outside holding a casserole dish like we were in some sitcom. And behind her was Kendra, holding Noah. I physically froze. Mom smiled nervously. We need to heal as a family. My father's face changed instantly. Not anger, disappointment, deep, exhausted disappointment. You brought her here? Mom started crying immediately. I just want us together again. Kendra stepped forward and said something that made Paige literally gasp. Noah deserves his grandfather. Not me. Not his father. His grandfather. Meaning my dad. They weren't even pretending anymore. They fully expected my father to financially and emotionally replace the real dad too. My father slowly opened the screen door wider. For 1 second, I thought he was actually going to let them in. Instead, he pointed toward the driveway. Get off my property. Mom looked stunned, like she genuinely believed she could still fix everything with tears and casseroles. Then Dad said the final thing that completely shattered whatever remained of their marriage. You spent 2 years trying to force that boy into this family. He pointed at Noah gently. Innocent child. None of this is his fault. Then he pointed at Kendra. But her lies are not my responsibility. Then finally, he looked directly at my mother. And neither are yours anymore. He shut the door, locked it, and walked back to the table without another word. My mother kept knocking for almost 10 minutes. We sat there in silence listening to it. Eventually the knocking stopped. Tail lights disappeared down the dirt road. And that was the last time any of us saw her in person. A few months later, we found out Kendra had moved to Texas with another guy. Different man, different future father. My mother went with her. Left Oklahoma entirely. Left her church, her friends, everything. Paige heard through relatives that Mom now babysits Noah almost full-time while Kendra works nights. So, in the end, I guess she got what she wanted. She became the parent after all, just at the cost of losing her actual family.